The second important element with the bankers will be very interested in knowing is what is the cost of project and means of finance. I mean, say you have approached the bank for a loan for starting a factory. So what is the cost of land? What is the cost of factory building? I mean, at what cost you are going to construct? Is it a construction or is it a factory you are buying? And what is the cost of plant and machinery? And what is the cost of other equipments? Then during this project implementation period, what is the interest you have to pay, because that is not going to generate any revenue. So what is the interest during project implementation, and any contingencies, because there can be ups and downs in all these factors or prices. So any contingencies, they'll be interested in knowing all the cost and how these are all going to be met out. What is a portion of capital which is going to be available for funding all this? So is it equity capital, or is it preference capital, or is it coming through debts like debentures? Is it coming through bank loan? Is it coming through profits, or is it coming through unsecured loans from, say, friends and relatives or from promoters? So basically the cost of project and means of finance will study how the project will be funded. We'll have it in a tabular form. So cost of project and means of finance will have cost of project on left side and means of finance on right side. Let's say land is first component, building second, plant and machinery the third one, interest during construction fourth, and say contingencies is 5. So all this would make out the total, and now the question is how these are all going to be funded. Number one, say it's from capital, a portion from preference share capital, a portion from, say, unsecured loan, USL, unsecured loan from promoters, a portion from profit, a portion from term loans, and a portion from debentures. Fine. So we have cost on one side and how it is going to be financed on the other side. But now the question is here, which is called project's equity and which is called project debt, because here two components are used. One is equity component, the other one is debt component. What do I mean by equity and debt here? The equity component need not be repaid as long as the project loan continues, and the debt component basically comprises the project loan and other loans which have to be repaid during the project life. So look at here, the capital, preference share capital, unsecured loan from promoters, profits. These are all the equity component. And these need not be repaid during the life of the project for which the loan was taken. Say if the project life is 20 years and the loan is taken for 15 years, and for 15 years if unsecured loan from promoters are not being repaid, the preference share capital is not repaid, and profits is not declared as dividend, then to that extent it is equity for the project. And the term loan and debentures are called debt for the project because they have to be repaid, and they'll be repaid during the course of the loan. So understand, the cost of project will have cost. Let's say I'll give the number. Say the cost of project is 100 and total is 100, and this 100 can be funded by two sources. One is the equity for the project. Let's say it's going to be out of 100, 40 is funded by equity and debt for the project. So I'll give the numbers. Equity is 40 and debt is 60. Okay, so here you have the cost of project is 100, equity component is 40, debt component is 60. So this is going to give you one important ratio in term loan appraisal or in project loans, that is project debt equity ratio. Here what is the debt component? Debt is 60 and equity is 40. So 60 divided by 40 is the debt equity ratio here. 60 by 40 would convey what? What could be the ratio? The ratio could be 1.5:1. That is, for every 1 rupee of equity contributed by the project owners, there is 1.5 of debt. So this is project debt equity ratio. The banks will have a band for accepting this ratio that I would tell later. And in this project, what is the margin and what is the debt component? Whatever has come in the form of equity is called as margin, and whatever come in the form of debt is project debt. So the project margin is nothing but equity divided by total cost of project. So in our case, equity is 40, cost of project is 100. So project margin is 40 by 100, which is 40%. So these two ratios will be used interchangeably by the bankers to understand the extent of owner's contribution in funding the project. The project debt equity ratio 1.5:1 conveys for every 1 rupee of equity there is a 1.5 of loan, and project margin would directly says in percentage the contribution of the owners of the project. So understand the debt equity ratio of 1.5:1 would convey the project margin of how much? The project debt and margin of 60% and 40%. 1.5 is 60% and 1 is 40%. So the debt equity of 1.5:1 automatically conveys the promoter's margin is 40%. And debt equity of 2:1 would convey the debt component is 67% and promoter's contribution is 33%. Similarly, the debt equity ratio of 3:1 would convey the debt component is 75% and promoter's contribution is 25%. So the important parameters in cost of project and means of finance is project debt equity ratio and the promoter's margin. So if the project debt equity ratio is high, when I say high, it could be like 3:1, 4:1, 5:1, then that project is highly leveraged. What will happen is it will have a bearing on the repayment capacity. How it will have a bearing on repayment capacity? Higherly leveraged means high level of loan, which will have high level of non-operating fixed cost, which could be the interest on term loan. This will affect the repayment because if the project faces a rough weather and if it is not doing well, this interest have to be paid at whatsoever be the consequence or whatsoever be the profit generating capacity. And if the project is not doing well and if the interest cannot be paid, then bank would sue the customer. Ultimately, the project will come to a stall and it will even go to the extent of liquidation.